Hello, Americans. And hello, people of Weathersfield and Connecticut schools. They've been attaching us to fake ties and fake natures of ties to everyone around us, and then lying about uh, with our responses with the kids that they use that weren't even in the same classes with people. Never even saw them around the schools and connected with ones that where there was a fake, they walk by and they'll take a picture and then want to have a debate about that. Like with the Joshua Julian. He's involved planting evidences like that with judges and prosecutors who also have their sexual and the religious differences involved with them with further with the principal child abuser. Increasingly, people with whiting forensics had roles with people as and tied to a Phil Cololo. There's a Phil Cololo involved with wire crimes and Weathersfield police forging names and switching names and fabricating police reports using wire mail crimes where they put fake mail, fake email with the people I caught before the World Trade Center attack. Hartford courts, and I didn't know their names yet, and I only know extent a little bit. I found out it was about former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, was planting evidences intercities and on off campuses with a whole bunch of people tied to a former Mayor Gold, who also pretended fake things in databases, sequence shifts, and fake motivations with various natures of federal criminals in other countries increasingly involved with the syntax of other people tied to them. And this whiting forensics involved with people with wire crimes and the Weathersfield police forging and switching names and making confessions because good people don't want to stay evil. So there were a whole bunch of people jumping on even overt. That's why they had the high line progressions. They have criminally portable readings of statutes, like with this Joshua Julian, pretending he knew me or knows me. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital have roles with Joshua Julian, with child medical offenders, with the name Leahy, who also pretended through time they had conversations with me. Since I was a kid, they've been attaching kids and their family members to fake conversations and ties to themselves and others, a Leahy family, and with the news to hide their life progressions, as news involved with all kinds of predicate acts methods, with courts and news locations at the same time, in court and the prisons and the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices, overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time, for reasons that forgiveness is relative. See, but forgiveness is going to show what they're afraid to have discerned, because they have people A through Z guilt. They have them overt criminal enterprises and private ones, names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch increasingly switching names, forging names, increasingly need to pretend they could speak for justice and for morality properly anyway. So self-valuing collusion /S with what they're doing between campuses of all ages and natures consciously. They have replaced short words that it takes to describe how George Washington agreed to use James Madison's plan and the founders behind him. And to counter this, the fact, human nature, torture, extortion, and fact, human nature, slavery, therefore physical slavery of people A through Z, and the names that were being blamed for it. Because other things, others, and ourselves, and or truths too, at the same time, used for lies to keep anything other ourselves blamed for what the breaching method did, that also nature keeps in demonstrating to us. The identity of nature itself shows us that to explain American history or any modern country's history properly, you have to understand the discernible, criminally foreign influenced human fact, human nature breaching method, already having been in possession of the names of countries individually grouped and together, already having been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to entertain the species volume /S as systems tactical ulterior from that one that hyper natively revealed the names and differences of the parts of our bodies, individually grouped in together. And then the same way, as individuals of the species body, as an individual species body of individuals, with all group differences, plural, in demonstration of the difference that is caused to, from, as, with, and for this. Concentrated a special difference here, or as that force from here, lethal hadith, more probably having been and more demonstrably having been revealed by the ancients as a scientific value to describe nature's negative identity of relativity to itself as this quality of diffusion, where we have automatically temporary / lasting positive, simultaneously hyper-additionally, on a hyper-native scale of justice that we have been forced to ignore too, Black pupils. This is how we can't get either our founders or the Native Americans are one part of our founders that were behind James Madison and his plan that George Washington agreed to start. And it had not been completed yet, even by the time of Jim Crow laws, because the breaching method discerned what our founders left us to understand about their roles and how they didn't have free speech, or they would be sensed and through our own, because it controlled the subjects. It controlled uses of them, natures of them. There are people involved with legislation. In other words, there are negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures that are caused by what they call with this peaceful energy generation with nuclear, because we know that they have to keep it cool. Otherwise, it could be problems for everyone. In other words, and already there had been problems for everyone, specifically to keep everyone blaming other things, others themselves, for why and how everyone's on systems tactical ulterior from the hyper-native one. When we can go like this better than free, we say, okay, New York City, the suburbs were designed tactically denatured. So we look over, and obviously New York City, cities across the country, this syntactically too. This breaching method put those crazy laws. So syntactically would be manifest, means for itself to measure and maintain, and to show, while being and having been used remotely, those bodies, including locations, areas, including countries, individually grouped together, because it knew that they'll be able to be names above locations, areas, and states already having been self-valued, while as a certain type of victim / hyper victim told to speak for the needs to speak too, directed by nature too, to use the names of the sciences, but abridged and ignoring that. So we can't afford to have discerned what nature does want and demonstrate needing to be discerned. In other words, before you can have private industry and value of economics and by it, meanings by it too, you have to have unabridged constitution. You have to have them collusionless natures of industry. But those collusions never went away. Many pray. In other words, that could be the only reason why and how they could collude. In other words, even if they're lying in every story, every news article, every case, every single person, it's one of the things what are witch trials about. You have to ask what was all the courts, self-value lies, paroles with that, all sides with that, because there was a breaching method there left out of the descriptions of it. That breaching method, you don't leave out the descriptions of it. How could you explain what we call slavery? A human fact, human nature breaching method that had been entrenched before America's founders were born. We have answers that are true always. better than math. But see, in other words, we have physical delusions with math assigned as logic. In other words, how do people describe it then? In other words, there's a mass on a mass scale. This is a method that, in other words, they're right on Facebook and inter-platforms. The agencies and their family members are hiding lipoaggressions because of the little tricks they use, which, in other words, planting evidences. Them pretending people are telling on them. Two, they're sequence shifting. They should fear God to hide the plot. Put one name in sequence. Get the Weathersfield police chiefs, plural. There was more than one, or just get the first one. There were retired police chiefs involved with this police chief, Cintron. He's involved with the sources of CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. I'll sign that I won't sue them. Just follow mandated law. Only sue the people that attach me to fake conversations with them. I believe, like Roger Suzanne is involved with that. I don't know if he's the one. I believe he might be one of the ones involved with that. And people who answer the phones for them. I don't know their names yet. It's also their roles with the intelligence next to them through time, and their conversations with their teachers and educators at different schools. Because the difference of that is also employed. Because these are overt criminal enterprises and private ones. At the same time, with the interbranch and the insidiousness of the logic styles in nature's A through Z. For example, as is manifest, as is actually recorded, and hyper evidential when people respond to what Jim Crow laws were about, while simultaneously wanting to define nature of the debate. You don't have to know what year it was in. You have to know that was about that slavery method. See, there's a method of correlation that they pretend Americans don't discern by keeping only fake suits and ties nature having been entertained. Counters to it and exceptions as collusion haven't been entertained. Because you guys had unnatural impositions at countries A through Z. Because at locations, areas, and states A through Z. The real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature's worst were shown and are shown to all identities of sophistication. And you need to keep them blamed on other things other than yourselves. You need to value how the overt criminal enterprises and private ones, everyone next to everyone is too. They're attaching everyone to change communications with those around them since we are young. Vaccines.